Okay, on becoming a real wizard, on pursuing wisdom. Alright? Now there's a book of life and the book of your own soul, and we'll come around in future videos to discussing these things in some kind of detail. I just thought for the fun of it, I'd show you some books from my collection. Now, it doesn't mean you have to have my books, but if you want wisdom, you have to let other people into your head. You have to read books by serious thinkers. You know, and depending on your biography and your culture and what culture you come out of, you probably already got books. You know? And maybe you don't like books. Maybe you're a young person who likes video games and you're just curious and you're trying to figure out what this is about. Well, there's a lot of fiction. I got a book of fiction here, and you pick up this particular writer's fiction and you're going to learn a lot of wisdom, because this is a very wise woman. You can also do the same thing with film. There's a lot of wisdom in film. You know, you get into my book, American Anthroposophy, I talk about 4 American personalities, 4 cultural wise people. I'm going to bring forward the book of one person. Films of Clint Eastwood. His mature films are full of wisdom. Guy by the name of Neal Stephenson. Very wise man. Writes really fascinating, interesting stuff. David Kelly, who produced a lot of interesting television, had a lot of wisdom in his television. You know, you maybe remember The Practice or Ally McBeal, and you know, he wrote for a medium where he had to be popular and stuff, but if you actually look at what he did in the sense of product, you'll realize that it's rather amazing what he did, because actors loved doing his stuff. They loved chewing the scenery with the words that he gave them to read. You know, if you can get on the internet and you want to find some criticism of legitimate criticism of the Supreme Court, see if you can run down somewhere a copy of the speech that comes from Boston Legal, where the character in there dresses down for 10 minutes the Supreme Court. Now, he doesn't do it in reality because it's a work of fiction, but as a work of fiction, there's a lot of wisdom about what the court's been up to in terms of screwing up our life in that thing that David Kelly wrote for that scene. Okay? So you're surrounded by wisdom, and you're probably attracted to certain things, and so go ahead, be attracted to them, you know? And if you want to broaden yourself, well, here's some weird books, you know? Thomas Paine, Common Sense. I'll tell you, this is an important book to read, to understand one of the founding thinkers that produced America. You know? If you want to go philosophically, there's Rudolf Steiner's Theory of Knowledge implicit in Goethe's world conception. I mean, I promote this book a lot, because what it is a map to the mind. Remember the know yourself part? Well, you need maps to the mind. You need maps from someone who's been there, done that. You know, and it has the wisdom to give you useful information. I love this book. I read this book a lot. It's called The Dispossessed by Ursula K. Le Guin. It's an amazing book. It's kind of indescribable in a way. It's a science fiction story. Sort of. I mean, she uses this science fiction story to talk about human existence from a particular point of view, and it's a fascinating set of arguments and discussions presented imaginatively. In other words, it's not put out there prosaically like an academic would do it. She makes pictures of existence and through her imagination, and tells stories and makes living very, very profound questions about human freedom and human social existence. And she's very wise, and she does an absolutely outstanding job of it. That's that. Okay. What else we got here? Well, we've got Meditations on the Tarot, A Journey into Christian Hermeticism. I write about this in other places in my works. if you want to get into the deeper side, you might say, of the Christian mysteries from a certain point of view, one that doesn't really do quite what I would hope it would do scientifically, but in terms of art and the art of expression and the depth of devotional understanding and a really, really intense, rational and intellectually adept mind. I mean, I'm only nuancing a little bit of a problem with it. That's an extraordinary book. And here's another one on becoming an alchemist. A guide for the modern magician. That's right up our alley here, right? So what does alchemy have to say today? What does a woman who is deeply spiritual have to say? You know, she has a lot of interesting stuff to say. I wrote a review on my website. You can read the review if you want, or you can just buy a book, you know. Go to a bookstore and look through some of these books and see if you're attracted to it. You know, this is called America's Global Responsibility. Individuation, Initiation and Threefolding by Josiah Ben Aaron. Josiah Ben Aaron is a really, really wise man. He's a seriously wise man. Okay? And he wrote a book on America's global responsibility because if you're an American, you want to understand that. And he didn't, you know, he came to the United States and lived here for 3 years for writing this book. He didn't sort of sit outside. You know, he met Americans and he's a really wise man and he wrote a really wise book. Okay? And there's Robert Bly, The Sibling Society. And also you want to maybe read Iron John. Now this guy's mostly known as a poet, but I think he's a poet because he's wise, not that he's wise because he's a poet. He has to be a poet because sometimes the only way you can express wisdom is, you know, through poetry. And of course, I don't agree with everything he says here. You know, he sees the degeneration in our society, but doesn't quite see it. You know, he doesn't quite understand that this Western civilization is falling, and we're making a metamorphosis to a new civilization, and he doesn't understand that. So he sees things from the sort of contemporary vision that people have, which tends to go, oh my, the sky is falling, you know, things are really bad, oh gosh. Well, things have to fall apart in order for new things to happen. What happens in the caterpillar becoming a butterfly? Well, the first thing that happens is the organism goes into chaos. You open up a cocoon and what do you got in there? You got undifferentiated cell mass. It's still living, but it's got no differentiation in it. It's all alike. The caterpillar wove this cocoon about itself and it collapsed into chaos. And then form appears. And it's a kind of miracle. And then the new form, the butterfly. So civilizations do that. They collapse into chaos. Here's another book. I'm just going to give you a little preface on this book. It's called Practical Astrology. It's attributed to Saint Germain. You can look it up on the internet. They'll say somebody else wrote it. Well, this is kind of a fun story. So I'm going to pause here because I'm almost out of time and come back and tell this story because this is sort of up the alley of people into various occult kinds of things and curiosity things and scientific things. See you later.